Welcome back to Africa Science Focus, the science and development show from SciDevNet. I am Ogiche Kianyo. Genetically modified organisms, GMOs, are plants, animals, or microorganisms that have been altered in a laboratory resulting in changes to their original characteristics. The reasons for genetic modification vary across fields. In agriculture, scientists may alter the DNA of plants to make them resistant to pests or diseases, make them more tolerant of extreme weather conditions, or increase their growth yield. But GMOs are a very controversial topic. Some people think they are great because they can help us grow more food and make it last longer. Others are worried that they may be harmful to our health and the environment. It's a big debate and people have strong feelings on both sides. In Nigeria, the introduction of the transgenic insect-resistant and drought-tolerant maize varieties, known as TELA maize, a genetically modified corn variety, has reignited the controversy surrounding GMOs in agriculture, sparking concerns among farmers and citizens alike. Our reporter, Jayne Augoye, spoke to Ijeoma Akaogu, plant breeder and geneticist and program officer at the African Agricultural Technology Foundation, implementing partners of the TELA maize project, who speaks about GMOs and the production process.
GMO means genetically modified crops, and they are plants used in agriculture that have their DNA altered using genetic modification or genetic engineering techniques. And the science behind this is we have a different method. So first of all, we have the gene identification. Before you go into using genetic engineering, probably you have also tried using the conventional plant breeding method to try improving those traits or incorporating the trait of interest or the gene of interest into your improved varieties that you have that farmers are growing. And probably you haven't made much progress or it's not forthcoming, then you can resort to using the genetic engineering techniques. So first of all, the science behind the GMO or genetic modification, there are rigorous steps taken. First of all, you have to do the gene identification and isolation, and for you to get the desired trait of interest. For example, with reference to the TELA maize, the gene of interest was the pest resistant and drought tolerant gene, and then for the pod borer resistant cowpea, the gene of resistant was for pest. So depending on what is your trait of interest, and then you actually have to, get those genes. And then you need to isolate those genes and their clone. You make multiple copies, and then you get it into the plant you want. And for you to get it into the plant, the gene insertion, we use the FRED method. We have the agrobacterium mediated technique, and then we also have the shotgun, the particle bombardment. In terms of the PBR cowpea, or in terms of the TELA maize, we use the agro-mediated transformation mechanism for us to be able to get this gene of interest into our crop. Now, after that is done, you do selection and make sure that the gene that you have incorporated is actually there. The target gene is there in the crop, and make sure that it's actually confirming the resistance of what you have incorporated in there. Then you do regeneration using tissue culture for you to get multiple copies. And after that, you do your screening, you test. While you're doing all those steps, is that you want to ensure that the desired trait is stable. If you're saying that it's pest resistant, is actually pest resistant? Have you altered the plant genome by inserting those gene? Is everything okay except the gene of interest? So you do all those precisions. And at each step, there are biosafety mechanisms or safety measures that are taken. There are regulatory measures that are being taken into it. And finally, we started from the lab, and the plants we have are grown on the field. So you finally do the field testing. We don't grow plants in the lab. We start auditing from the lab, and then we end on the field. Now you do the field testing. You want to make sure that those plants that you have actually taken through these rigorous processes, are they actually adaptable on the field? What is the efficacy of what you have, all the processes you have done in the lab? By so doing, we're able to evaluate the national performance, the performance of this crop under natural conditions, and to make sure that the crop is up to that. And then you go for regulatory approval. In Nigeria, we have a National Biosafety Management Agency which gives the approval for us to be able to do these trials, right from the import permit to the confirmed food trial until it is deregulated. So this is actually the processes that is being taken and before it's being released. So first of all, you get the approval from the National Biosafety Management Agency that is in Nigeria, and then you go to the varietal release. The varietal release are the people that will look at this crop and want to find out what is so peculiar about this. They call it the GUS. What are the listings, uniformity, and stability? What are you bringing to the table that is different from the other varieties that have been released or that is being grown by farmers? So what is the uniqueness of this variety? They look at it, and if it has passed all these tests, they will be able to release this variety to farmers in Nigeria.
Jayne had a conversation with Olushola Showemimo, a Nigerian farmer and founder of Ope Farms. She shared her concerns about the adoption of genetically modified organisms.
My understanding of GMO, which is genetically modified organisms, is a definition that I found in an abstract by Jayne Augoye. And she said, changing existing features of living beings or giving new features to them by changing the natural gene sequence through biotechnological methods. That bothers me.
Samuel Agele, a professor of plant ecophysiology at the Federal University of Technology, Akure, Ondo State, Nigeria, shared his insights on the concerns and benefits surrounding genetically modified crops. He discussed the potential advantages of GM crops, but also expressed concerns about the significant alterations made to plant genetics.
It has a lot of benefits. You have new crops in new environment these days. With the changing climate and other challenges, there is need to have crops that can adapt to this new growing environment. GMO crops have high potential to do this. That is that. But the challenge is that not much is still known about it, especially in Africa. We have public opinion concerns for food safety, food habit concerns. There's this other theory that it can promote the growth and development of diseases in man. So cancer, for example, is not cancer alone. So many other diseases. Cancer is a big one, but some other diseases, because changing in food habit can bring about changes in human physiology, and that the change can be dysfunctional, and if it's dysfunctional, it can result to all kinds of diseases. Cancer is a big one, but there are other smaller diseases that are known to be affected. We also have big problem in ecology with what we call genetic loss, biodiversity loss. These GM crops have the capacity to take over completely, disallow existing diversity of crop plants that have adapted to these areas for long time period can be eroded. That is just the fear of scientists, particularly ecologists, that they will pollute existing diversity.
Farmer Olushola shared her perspectives and worries as a farmer.
I started hearing of GMO probably about 30 years ago. And at that time, it just seemed like something that was quite unreal, So I know that it is not new, and I have actually heard of it right from my teenage years. Regarding the controversies, it's a healthy one because we've got to have the freedom to choose. You should not force anything on the people. Now, these seeds have been planted for years, they're sold in the market, but guess what? They're not bold enough to label it GMO. So, this is food fraud. We're buying things that we don't even know. You're giving us a wrong perception of food when it is actually already compromised. So if organic food, for instance, you're forced to go through verification, assessment, and all of that to label your food organic, why not the same for GMO? People should have a right to choose. If we feel that it causes illness, it disturbs the ecosystem in the soil, it deprives us of seeds, then we've got to know. We've got to know. It is food fraud if people are eating what they don't know. It's unfair. And all I hear the scientists talk about is the fact that they need to increase the volume of food. So, should food nourish the body, or should it just be nutrient deficient and we just say foodless food? So what are we consuming? These are things that the repercussion would come, whether we like it or not. There are so many research work out there. People are only giving excuses. Innovation, I hear people talk about innovation. I hear them talk about science. And as another medical doctor said in a conversation, whose science are we talking about? You know, Nigeria is a country. We're in Africa. I remembered, going for a seed conference, and I was quite proud of what we have in Africa. Something is definitely wrong. This is not how it should be. We need to shake the table, because I listen to scientists and I haven't found anything so fundamental in what they keep saying. I mean, how does a scientist determine that people are hungry when in the same country food is being wasted because they can't even take it out to the market? Yes, the controversies should continue. People have a right to know.
We go back to Professor Agele, who offered suggestions on how to address these concerns and alleviate public fears surrounding GM crops.
But these fears can be addressed if there are good regulation. There are regulatory standards for genetically modified organisms, particularly crops, all over the world. So all we need to do is to stay with these standards in the production and in the cultivation of these crops.
Ijeoma insists that GM crops are beneficial.
The modification of GMO or crops using genetic engineering are numerous. It offers a whole lot of benefit. First of all, the agricultural benefits. There's increased yield. If we're able to tackle the pests of interest and you're able to reduce that, because those pests that you're trying to confer resistance with, before you went into doing that, it had an economic importance to the crop. There was a lot of yield reduction. And then by incorporating resistance to those pests, you're actually increasing yield. So first of all, there is increased yield. And if we're able to get increased yield, we'll be able to meet the global food demand. In fact, not even global, we're able to meet the global the demand of food in Nigeria with our increasing population. That's the world. Then when we talk about pest resistance, like I talked about the TELA maize, I also talked about the PBR coffee. These crops were actually engineered to produce confer resistance to a particular insect, the Reptilian insect. And then by so using it, so in terms of the PBR copy, farmers usually have to spray their field 6 to 8 times. Wow. Yeah. And for them to be able to get yield. I don't know if you have an opportunity to be on the field when those farmers are actually spraying this field. Most of them don't wear the proper protective covers. And then that actually causes some very bad effect on their health. By the time they inhale those chemicals, it affects their respiratory organs, a whole lot of things goes on. By that, their safety is also guaranteed. Now we talk about the environmental benefit. If you have reduced from 6 to 8 to 2, in terms of cost, you would have known the amount of money you would have saved by solving it. And also, you'll be able to increase the income of the farmers, because the farmers will not be spending money, on chemicals, because the cost has actually been reduced. So they will actually have a higher yield. They will have reduced cost of pesticide, and that can increase profit for them. Farmers will be able to have good benefits and also send their children to school, especially in this part of the world where we are, that farming is actually at subsistence level and being managed by smallholder farmers. Okay. And when these are being done, we'll be able to have a stable food supply. Now there is food crisis in the country. How are we going to avert that? Are we going to keep relying on just the traditional method of doing things to feed the growing population in the country? I guess the answer is no. So by the time we're able to do this, we're able to get that. And also, there are also nutritional benefits to that. Yes, the variety have mentioned, or the crops have mentioned, which are the PBR cowpea and the TELA maize, are not actually for nutrition. But actually, in this field, we have actually had some nutritional benefits, crops that have actually been, developed and also out there in the market.
For some farmers like Anthony Musa, farming GM crops have been profitable. He explains why.
If you are cultivating the normal, for example, like we are cultivating cowpea. So the normal cowpea, under good management practices and whatever, you can get like 15 bags per hectare, 10 to 15 bags per hectare. But with the GMO, with the PBR cowpea, under good agronomic practices and good cultivation and management practices, you can get up to 30 bags per hectare, which is there's a great gap between the two in the crop. Now, if you check the cost of production, understand, if you are spraying like 4 times and it happens that 1 liter of that particular thing costs like 10,000, check the number of times, the number of liters you are going to consume per 1 hectare, and check the number of liters you are going to use for this particular GMO per 1 hectare. So if you are using that 7,000 naira extra, it can take care of some other domestic needs. There's no difference between planting GMO and the non-GMO, because if it is maize, it's still maize. You don't plant GMO seeds and you expect that maybe to have like a super morphology or super appearance like what. It's still the same thing like the conventional counterpart, which is the normal ones that we plant. So the only difference between the GMO and the non-GMO is that control, that specific action or action that it will portray on the stress you are subjected to. They have been cultivating cowpea because it has been the one, not just the first crop that has been commercialized in Nigeria. I know of cotton, but here in Abuja, we don't really go into cotton production or cotton cultivation. We go into like cowpea, maize, and whatever. But thank God, since the commercial release of the cowpea, I was able to like have a handful of the seeds and I planted. I really enjoyed it. The following year, I now dropped the rest of the other conventional cowpea that I've been planting, and now embrace the PBR cowpea, which is genetically modified. And really, to be candid, the application of chemicals I use in controlling the conventional cowpea is like 8 times for me to get the better yield as I expected from that conventional. But with the GMO, I spray maximum 3 to 4 times, and which is a great advantage to my own health, in the sense that I can continue inhaling the chemicals and whatever. So at least it can prolong one's life and whatever. It's very, 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 very health-wise is okay. The challenge I face with the GMO is sometimes getting the seed available, the availability of the seed, and sometimes too, it's not virtually all the people that have knowledge on this particular. I wanted to people to embrace the technology, but the communication sometimes is just the problem, and reaching the people that are supposed to be reached is always the big issue. It's only a few farmers that know about this particular technology.
Are there physical differences between organic maize and genetically modified maize? Let's hear from Ijeoma.
As in using your physical eye, no, you can't, except you go to the lab, or you use the reagent to do a quick test using the test strip. But just men looking at it, there are no difference. In fact, you can't even differentiate it just looking at the mere hand. You need to go to the lab to be able to get the differentiation. Or there's also what we call the test strip. The quick test strip that we use on the field. Right there on the field, you'll be able to crush the crop, or depending on which part of the crop you're using, so that you can get the DNA out. Either you're using the seed, you're using the leaf, or whichever other part of, quick there, crush it on the field, and dissolve it in a buffer, and then sew the test strip for you to actually check if the gene is present or not. They test the same, nothing, just like I told you. It just apart from the gene conferring resistance to those pests, which is the 4-armyworm and the stem borer and the drought, every other thing is the same. And I want to put it clear here that before those varieties, or before these crops are actually deregulated, given environmental approval by the National Plant Safety Management Agency, we do a lot of safety assessments. We do the food and feed safety. Are you getting it? So, you're talking about this thing. We have to make sure that apart from the gene of interest, there is no unintended, effects that as a result of this transformation, or as a result of this, that is going to have. We also have to make sure it's not going to affect non-target organisms. Non-target organisms means, we bred it for armyworm and stem borer. I hope it will not leave for armyworm and start affecting other beneficial insects like the butterfly, like the honeybee, So all those rigorous tests were actually were carried out before we got the approval. And before they are released to the public. So in terms of the taste, everything was done,
With so many controversies surrounding GM crops, Ijeoma tells us how the African Agricultural Technology Foundation intends to address the misconceptions and controversies.
The truth is that there is still this gap. And again, for us to be able to address those concerns, we need to involve more in clear communication, engage the public more, so that people actually understand what it's all about. Be able to engage the media, transparent communication, be able to have it in clear and simple languages, use more straightforward, especially when you're trying to talk to non-technical audience, so that they'll be able to understand. And again, I think we should be able to, which we have been doing, but we should also be able to share more success stories, use case studies of farmers, seed companies that are actually, growing those crops in Nigeria. In terms of TELA maize was just released this January 2024. Yeah. So the first planting season in Nigeria is just the season that we're in. By October, we should actually, have the maize out there, the process out there, and depending on also the region of the country where you're actually looking at, some people even started planting a bit earlier because the rainfall in those areas started a bit earlier than others. So, but having said that, be able to engage people that have actually been involved, to tell the success stories, to share, and then so that people are aware that this thing is being done by Nigerian and in Nigeria, and not that it's being, imported, or there is actually any external influence. You get it, like what we're actually hearing in the social media, or yes. And again, we should be able to able to engage a diverse audience. And like you doing the public forum workshop, organized event, which I've actually been doing. There is this open forum for agricultural biotechnology. They organize event where they bring in experts to discuss about the GMO, answer questions and also address their concern. Educational campaign, the open forum for agricultural technology has actually gone as far as going to the school children to be able to introduce agricultural biotechnology, in the school curriculum, so that the students are able to understand it, pick it up from that early age, is better. And I think for us in Nigeria, we should also look at who is actually talking about the topic. What is the person's area of specialization? The person that is actually speaking about the topic. And I guess with that background, you'll be able to agree with me that whatever information I'm able to give to you, yes, this is somebody that has actually been working in that area. But can you just imagine an area where an architect, an engineer, is talking about GMO? And what do you really know so much about it? And the truth is that not everything on the media, not everything on the internet space, not everything on Google are correct. So I think we'd also, be able to collaborate with trusted sources, partner with scientists, universities, research institutions, to be able to get correct information like you're trying to do. And also involvement of farmers. We have the farmer groups. We have the All Farmers Association of Nigeria. Even those farmers that actually have grown those crops, to be able to share first-hand experience. And then for them to find out, when they grew this crop, is it true that other crops around you all died? Is it true that when you went there the next year, nothing was able to, for us to get those first-hand information and be able to, address the concern. Is there any ethical issues? Is there any myths? As far as I'm concerned, and as far as the scientific, institution or the scientific body that I know is concerned, we have not actually have recorded any risk in terms of health, assistance. But that research is actually an ongoing, and then it does not stop there. So we're still doing research to find out that if there are any, safety issues regarding GMO. But the ones we currently have on the market are safe for human consumption. And they offer no significant, they offer significant, environmental benefits. So, but, research is an ongoing thing, and they will be able to, continue to do that. And another thing again, but not the least, is also community engagement, which we try doing using the field day, the farmer field days, where people actually come, see this crop on the field, and then see that the crops, unlike the picture they paint out there, it's not as if that those crops are different. Or maybe the human beings, like I've been eating the GM crops. I've not grown once, but I'm still here. So because when they paint those scary pictures, it makes people actually scared. So, first-hand information, is very, very important.
And that's all from us at Africa Science Focus today. If you want to find out more, head to the SciDevNet website. That's www.scidev.net. Today's show was produced by Alice Hurst, with editing by Ogechi Ekeanyanwu and Titilope Fadari, and reporting by Jayne Augoye. I'm Ogechi Ekeanyanwu. Until next time, goodbye. Africa Science Focus is produced by SciDevNet and distributed in association with your local radio station.